Thank you for having me. I thought this was quite a good title because I think a lot of the time aging gets a really bad stick, and there's lots of benefits to aging, which we'll go into, but also there's so much that can be done. And I really want to touch on the things that we can do, because there's so many things, and I think sometimes nutrition is often not really talked about, and how we can do little changes in our life to really support our aging. So I'm Richelle. I am a qualified nurse. I've been qualified 12 years. I started in intensive care, just to kind of give you a little bit of a kind of understanding of my background. So I started in intensive care. I moved into community nursing and then into women's health nursing. And my passion is very much about supporting people, empowering themselves and understanding what they can do for themselves. And a lot of this has come from my own health journey. I have struggled for many years with different musculoskeletal issues. I've had carpal tunnel in my wrist, golfer's elbow. I've had 6 slip discs, arthritis in my hip, trochlear dislocation in my knee. It goes on. A lot of this is kind of combined based on the fact I've got neurodivergence. I'm autistic, I've got ADHD, and musculoskeletal issues are kind of part and parcel of this. I've also got a lot of digestive issues. Well, I did have digestive issues. I was told for many, many years that I had IBS, which is as we discussed before, an umbrella term for when no one really knows what to do with you. When you have digestive issues that go on and no one really knows what to do. And after 10 years of fighting for an endoscopy, I finally got an endoscopy which showed I had Barrett's syndrome, which is where the cells of your stomach and your esophagus change shape. And I was told there, basically straight after the endoscopy, if you keep going with your lifestyle as you are going to get stomach cancer. So I said, okay, what do I need to do? What changes do I need to make? And I was told, I have no idea. That was it. I was given no nutrition support. I was given no follow-up. I was sent off on my own to try and work out what to make of this. And to be honest with you, this was really an eye-opening experience. As someone who had nursed for many years and really I'm still very passionate about orthodox medicine, I think this was really a wake-up call into what can I do for myself? What can I do that can really lead my own health? Because ultimately we can be given a lot of the tools from orthodox medicine, but we need to be able to take control of ourselves and look at the clues that the body is giving us. And this led me down the path of nutrition, and looking at what I could do for myself. And then this led me further down the path of naturopathy. And where I feel naturopathy really distinguishes itself from nutrition is looking at the clues that the body is giving you. And we'll dig into this a little bit further, but when I do an assessment, I look at the tongue, I look at the eyes, I look at the hair, I look at the nails. I'm looking at what the body is telling me here and now, because ultimately the body has the answers. So that's a little bit about my journey, about what's led me down this path, and a little bit of a kind of breakdown in pictures of kind of where I've got to. So a little bit about as we age. Different things happen as we age. I've tried to keep it succinct because obviously I said I want to keep it positive. But things change in our digestion. Our metabolism, it slows down. And you'll find, our energy, our body has to work harder in order to support our energy and support our immunity. Our bone density will change. So we have to really look at how we can function and preserve our bone. Our muscle mass can decrease, not definitely will, but we need to really work harder, or try to work harder at supporting that. And there are cognitive changes. But again, there are things that can be done to really support our brain health. But I really wanted to touch on the fact we get a lot of stick, and I think, some people might think, well, why am I talking about aging? I mean, we're all aging, ultimately, and because I've dealt with my own musculoskeletal issues, I was told at 18 I had the body of a 90-year-old. So I've always been very mindful about preserving the body and its function as much as possible. And it's not something that we should just be doing when we get to the end of our life. It's something that can be really altered and worked on at any point. And I think this is what's really key. But I think I always like to say, we obviously, well, I like to think, hopefully we get wiser as we get older. But I think there's been a lot of change in medicine, or a lot of input into medicine about how we are living longer and how we can live longer. But it's not just about that, it's about how can we live better. And I think a lot of people here will know people or their family members who, you know, I've lived myself with family members with cancer. My mum died of cancer very young, lived with dementia, and it's about how can we actually, it's not just about living longer, but it's about living better as well. So I want to dig in to a few of these areas and look at ways that we can support them. So if we're looking at protein and muscle maintenance, protein is absolutely key. And we need to look at ways that we can really include protein into our diet. And I know from speaking to and working with a lot of people that as we get older, protein is one of the hardest foods that we can have to digest. So as we get older, I've even noticed myself, my ability to digest protein really has got a lot harder. So I don't know if anyone's noticed that maybe they find it harder to eat meat, and they're having to kind of shift to that lighter sort of proteins like fishes and things that are a bit easier to digest. So it's important to bear in mind that actually, yes, our digestion changes as we get older, but there are things that we can do to support that protein digestion, because it's really key that we do get that protein into our diet. Protein is key, not just for making sure that it's supporting our muscles, but protein is key for our enzyme development, and all of our tissues are made up of building blocks of protein. And so it's really important that we're trying to get a variety of different proteins into the body. And proteins come in different forms. Some proteins have what we call complete amino acids, so an egg has a complete form of amino acids, and you have some foods that have got an incomplete. So it's really important to get a variety of proteins in the body. And especially if you're vegetarian, you really need to be looking to get that variety. So if you're having, for example, a lot of beans, you need to be getting a variety of the beans, because they all come with their own different amino acids and they all work synergistically. And we were talking earlier about the importance of strength and increasing strength and importance of the body in supporting mobility and in supporting muscle strength. And I think a lot of the time people get a bit worried about strength training. They think it's something that's, you know, I have to jump straight to 10 kilos or 20. And ultimately you can just start with the most basic of strength. I mean, even balance training, standing on one leg has such a benefit to the body. Even just doing that, I mean, for me, I still struggle with a lot of exercise with my body. 5 seconds I'll do. And obviously I've got somewhat people here are way more qualified in terms of mobility, but there's a lot that can be done, just basic exercises that can really help to support the strength. But one of the things I say about protein, there is technically a calculation of working out how much protein you need, and as we get older we are meant to increase the amount we have. So for example, middle age, we say that you should be getting about 1 gram of protein per kilo of body weight, and as we get older it should be shifting to about 1.6 grams. But I always say to everyone, don't sit there and stress weighing out your protein, because who wants to sit there with some scales weighing out their protein? So it's really about trying to just make little changes. How can I introduce little bits of protein throughout the day? So if I'm thinking about my cereal or my breakfast, how can I introduce some more protein into that? Can I add a little bit of cottage cheese on the side? Can I add a little bit of yogurt on the side? How can I put those things in place? So it's just about looking at those little things that we can do rather than massive shifts to the diet. And I touched earlier on how our digestion will change. And that can lead to, I mentioned, you know, the ability to digest protein can be a little bit harder. So we can also notice certain symptoms changing as well. So it might find that you get slightly more constipation as we get older. We might find that we're getting more heartburn as we get older. These are all things that can happen, and a lot of this is actually down to specifically the changes in our acidity levels in our stomach. So as we get older, the amount of acid in our stomach depreciates, it decreases, and a lot of the time, and I've got GPs here, so that there's going to be a kind of there's a kind of shift in perspective with this, but a lot of the time when people are getting a lot of heartburn, there's the idea that it's because there is too much acid in the body, but actually there's been a lot of newer evidence to show that can actually be from reduced acid levels. And because the body is having this reduced acid, it's struggling to digest the food, and when it's struggling to digest the food, it's then bringing it up, and with it, it's bringing acid up with it. And so a lot of the time when people are coming through with heartburn or acid reflux, it can actually be from reduced acid levels, not necessarily increased, that is causing it. And this is really key, because a lot of people come through and feel like, I need to take PPIs, I need to take a omeprazole, I need to try and neutralize or reduce the stomach acid. But potentially this could be making it worse, and this could be making the digestion worse, and potentially the heartburn and those symptoms as well. So there are ways of looking at this. There are actually very basic tests that you can do. Basically, I'm happy to kind of, send this out to people, but even just taking a bicarb of soda, a 1/4 teaspoon, putting that in some warm water and looking to see how quickly you burp. Very quick test to give an indication as to your stomach acid levels, because they do depreciate as you get older. And stomach acid isn't just important for our body's ability to digest food. It's also key for lots of other roles, one of which is it increases our body's ability to make minerals available. So certain minerals, certain nutrients, magnesium, iron, zinc, these need stomach acid in order to make them bioavailable. So if that stomach acid is not there, there are going to be nutrients that are I always say potentially are not going to be at their highest capacity in the body. And we need to be kept mindful of this. If we'll go on a little bit to talk about, what mineral depletions can look like, but we need to be doing everything we can to be supporting how well our body is absorbing these minerals. And focusing on stomach acid is something that is really, really key and often not looked at. And I mentioned about magnesium, iron and zinc. B12 is another one. So B12, the levels really decrease from the age of 50. And B12 has such a knock-on effect on numerous roles, numerous jobs in the body, but specifically thinking about zinc. Zinc is crucial for immunity. There's so many how our skin is functioning, and what we're going to do later, I've got a little test as well, which is a really simple test in just trying to look at how well our body and our zinc levels are in the body, because there's a very easy test that we can do to just have a look and see how our zinc levels are. So if we're looking at digestion and what can be done, stomach acid you can actually get supplements for, but I never go straight to supplements. We always should be focusing on food and like I said before, what can we do for ourselves? This is always key. So the cephalic stage of eating, this is the first stage of eating. This is before we put any food in our mouth. It's about our body's perception of the food in front of us. So as soon as we put some food in front of us, first thing that is really key is actually give the food a good smell. Really take a few minutes or a few seconds at least just to sit with the food and be mindful with it. Give yourself that time, because that few seconds of just breathing and smelling the food, just taking a few seconds to relax, it signals to the brain that food is coming in. Those signals to the brain are key because they start the enzymes going in the mouth, they start the saliva going. That's what we need in order to get everything already started. If that's not there, it can be really dry, it can be really hard to start digesting food. And that's just the first step. That's before we've even got down to the stomach acid starting to be made. So we really need to think about what we can do straight away, looking at the food before it even enters our mouth. And it's really, really simple things. Even just chewing. A lot of it, I know for me personally, sometimes I have to really be mindful about how much I'm chewing and how quickly I'm eating food. They say you're meant to chew 17 times every bite. I think sometimes that can be difficult to be prescriptive about it, but I think it's really just taking the time to just slow down. You know, a lot of people are eating at their desk, or they're eating on the go, and it's just saying to myself, you know, I'm just going to sit for a second and really take my time and let the body prepare for this food. Fibre is absolutely key as well, and obviously, you know, a lot of people know about the benefits of fibre. Fibre is it has so many benefits in the body. Fibre is not just what keeps our bowels moving, it's what helps to detoxify hormones, it's what detoxifies toxins coming into the body. We need the fibre in order to draw everything out from the gut that doesn't need to be there. And fibre is crucial. You can get it from lots of different sources, whole grains, fruits, veggies, but I think it's really important to note, a lot of the time if someone hasn't been getting a high amount of fibre in their diet, they can be very quick to suddenly increase it. But actually, if you increase it quickly, it can actually lead to constipation. It can go the other way. So we just have to be mindful of how quickly. It's about slowly introducing this to the body. And probiotics and prebiotics, I'm sure a lot of people have heard about probiotics and prebiotics. Probiotics are the foods that support the beneficial bacteria and increase the numbers of beneficial bacteria in the gut. And the prebiotics are the foods that support and fuel those probiotic bacteria. So probiotics you can get in things like fermented foods, things like sauerkraut, miso, kimchi. Some people don't like those foods. I personally love anything like that. But prebiotics you can get from lots of different things. Dandelion, broccoli stalks, the stalks of lots of vegetables are fantastic for prebiotic fibre. But you need both of them. But it's just important again to be mindful. A lot of the time we can jump in and start flooding we got to put probiotics and prebiotics in the diet. If you're already having digestive symptoms, these can actually make it potentially worse. They can aggravate it. So if you are having digestive symptoms, if you're someone who struggles a lot with abdominal bloating, with constipation, hold back. Don't jump in with those probiotics and prebiotic foods. Gently introduce them. Introduce one, see how you go, give it a week, and slowly go in. But there's lots that can be done with the nutrition and looking at when you eat and how you eat to really support the diet. And I really wanted to touch on this with relation to prebiotic and probiotic. I thought this is really interesting. So Maria was the supercentenarian who died last year, 117 years old, which is amazing. And she was found to have the gut microbiome of a child, which I found fascinating. And they've done lots of studies into the gut microbiome, so the makeup of gut bacteria at different stages of life. And they found that Maria, her gut was full of bifidobacterium. And bifidobacterium is anti-inflammatory. It's known to support the tight junctions in the gut, so it keeps the gut really working really nicely, keeps it all together, stops any pesky toxins or inflammatory chemicals moving their way in. It keeps that gut lining nice and secure, so by doing that, it can help with making sure that our cognition is good. It's keeping everything going as it should, and it can even support bone and muscle health. And I thought this was really, really interesting. And the one thing that's really known to support bifido, fruit and vegetables, which sounds so obvious. And I think a lot of people think, I'm getting fruit and veg. I'm getting fruit and veg in my diet. But actually, what they have found is, studies have shown, people think you need 5 portions of fruit and veg a day. It's actually 10 to 12. That's what the evidence is really showing in Japan. You need 10 to 12 a day, really. And that's really hard to get. And I think one of the other things that we have to be mindful of is our soils are depleted of many nutrients. So it's very hard for us to be getting those nutrients, even if we're getting 10 to 12 portions of fruit and veg a day. So there are little things that we can do. I personally take a fruit and vegetable capsule for me, that's the best thing I can do to know that I'm getting the amount. But it's just to be mindful that we can sometimes think we're getting fruit and veg, but actually there's a lot of other factors that we need to be mindful of. What I wanted to see if does anyone know where the current oldest person in the world lives?
UK.
Yes. Because I think a lot of people, when I've discussed this before, people think, oh, it could be also the Mediterranean diet, living in Spain. But no, the UK has the next oldest, which I thought was very interesting. And I think there's going to be a lot more evidence looking at the gut and its impact in how we can modulate immunity and modulate aging. So stress, something that obviously a lot of people know, the negative impacts of stress. It can speed up aging, it can worsen existing problems, and it can worsen inflammation, and inflammation can have a knock-on effect and lead to sort of inflammatory disorders, which we see more as we age. But I think what's important to touch on, we've talked about mindfulness, and I think sometimes some things can feel really overwhelming when it comes to what do I do for stress. I know that personally, for me, I like to try and meditate, but sometimes I'm like, oh, do I really want to do that today? My mind's really active and I struggle to settle. And I think it's important to know there are lots of very, very simple things that can be done to help with stress that don't involve, doing yoga or meditation, very small things. So there are things like somatic exercises, vagal exercises, that can switch on that vagal nerve and switch us to a parasympathetic tone. And what we're doing by doing that is switching into that parasympathetic state, that relaxed state, which not only is it going to be helping to de-stress us, but it also has a knock-on effect in supporting our digestion as well. So really simple things that I love. Humming. Humming is known to really increase that vagal nerve. I do it all the time. I'll just be sat there on the train. Singing. People think it's crazy to sing in the street. I think it's amazing. And gargling 30 seconds a day. It's not just good for oral health, it's actually fantastic for vagal tone as well. And a really lovely one is eye movement. So just sitting down, crossing your hands behind your neck to support your head, very gently looking up, looking over to the right for 30 seconds, just with your eyes. So I did it then with my head, but just with your eyes, 30 seconds, and then coming back to center and just with your eyes to the left. And that is a fantastic exercise. Yes, a lot of us are stressed without even realizing it. And I think the world that we're living in, it's part and parcel. We're seeing things on the news, everything, there's a lot of changes, and I know that a lot of the time I might say to myself, I'm not stressed. It's coming out in my body. The body holds a score, the body has clues. So it's just important, I think, to be mindful of the other things that can be done for stress as well. So I want to touch on to bone health. And bone health is something, that word osteoporosis, I think it's a really kind of word that I don't really like it, to be honest with you, but it is something we need to be thinking about. But I think a lot of the time with osteoporosis, and we're talking about the breakdown or the degeneration of bone tissue, I think a lot of the time people think the only thing that can be done is calcium supplements, but actually there's a lot more that needs to be considered. And I touched on stomach acid before, and stomach acid is absolutely crucial in terms of, like we said, about digestion and mineral availability. And one of the things with stomach acid is if we talked about those nutrients before that need stomach acid to become available, one of those nutrients is calcium. And if calcium is not getting broken down into its most available form, it can actually build up into the joints, it can build up as bony spurs. And so a lot of the time, people might come through and say, I feel like I've got osteoporosis. They haven't had a DEXA scan, they haven't checked anything. And I say, well, hold on, let's wait and see first what can be done, because joint pain or feeling, issues with kind of fragility in the bones doesn't necessarily mean straight away there's osteoporosis. It could be that there's other things that can be done to support the way that calcium is being laid down into the bone. And yes, we can look at foods that support calcium. It's not just in dairy, leafy greens and other foods as well, but it's lots of the other nutrients that people don't touch on. And vitamin K and vitamin D are absolutely essential. You need vitamin K and vitamin D in order to absorb the calcium. And a lot of the time I see people taking calcium without any sort of prescription, and if you're not having it with the other markers, the other factors that are going to help absorb it, it's just going to become built up and it's not actually going to be laying down that bone. So it's really important to know that you need all those nutrients working together.
Can I just ask you?
Yes.
Is that okay to ask?
But I was going to happy to do it at the end, but please feel free to ask me questions. Absolutely.
Do you need magnesium at the right balance for the calcium to absorb?
Absolutely,
yeah.
Absolutely. And they all need to be working in sync. So, for example, I was going to say with vitamin D, when people come through and they'll say, my vitamin D is this level, I'll say, okay, but we need to see your calcium levels, because you need to be able, you can't just go off of one marker. We need to be looking at how they're all working together.
But also then there's the right type of magnesium.
And there's the right type of all the nutrients. So magnesium, for example, absolutely. You know, if someone's...
The right type.
Yes, exactly. The right type, did you say?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm slightly partially deaf, so that's sometimes I struggle, but absolutely. So, you know, if someone's coming to me for stress, I'll tend to go more for a glycinate. If someone has cardiovascular issues, I'm looking at more of a threonate, absolutely. And it's about looking at how much elemental magnesium. There's so many things that we need to consider, not just the amount, like you said, not just the type, but also the amount that we're getting in the supplement as well, absolutely. So vitamin D, we can actually get a little bit from food. Some people don't think we can. It's very minute. You can get some from generally egg yolks, but they need to be organic egg yolks, to be honest. But the majority does come from the sun. Yes, it's important to make sure that we are not burning, but it is important to make sure we are getting some vitamin D for the sun. My recommendation and the recommendation of naturopathic studies is you really should be getting 15 minutes in the summer without sunscreen to make sure that you are getting that vitamin D level. And in the winter, NHS recommendations is that everyone should be on vitamin D supplementation. But to be honest with you, even in the summer, a lot of people are deficient in vitamin D, and so most people that come through and I see their vitamin D levels are absolutely on the floor and will need some form of supplementation of vitamin D even in the summer.
Richelle?
Yes.
Did you read the recent research on vitamin D and telomeres?
No.
There's been a study, I think it was in America. Telomeres are the end of chromosomes and they get shortened with aging, and taking the vitamin D supplement, they've just published a trial showing that maintains the telomeres, so in other words it's holding back aging, and they're recommending 50 micrograms all through the year.
Thank you. I'm glad, because I know there's a lot of evidence with telomeres at the moment and what we can do to kind of extend them. So I need to look at this, absolutely. I love when you get new information coming through every day, brilliant. And I wanted to touch on this as well, because it's like we mentioned before about protein, but 50% of bone is actually made up of protein. So it's really, really important that we're getting a good amount.
Are black-skinned people less likely to get vitamin D?
Yes, it's harder for their skin to absorb vitamin D, so often their levels are depleted. One of the things I do in an assessment, I'll also look at, I look at someone's eyes. So it's not just about the darkness of the skin, but it's also looking at someone's constitution. And if someone has a kind of darker brown constitution, this will also give me an idea that their vitamin D levels are likely to be reduced as well. But absolutely, it's harder for darker skin to absorb the amount of vitamin D, absolutely.
Where does vitamin K come from? How would you get that in food?
How do you get vitamin K in food? Leafy green veg is the best form of getting it. Okay. You can also get it in fortified forms as well, but leafy green veg has got the best form of getting vitamin K.
Fortified, what's that?
Fortified foods. You can get it added in, but to be honest with you, I try not to go for foods that have got them added in, but leafy green veg is the best form of getting it, of getting vitamin K. So I wanted to touch on antioxidants as well. Antioxidants, as I'm sure a lot of you know, they are absolutely crucial at supporting our body's ability to fight oxidative stress. And our bodies will very naturally, our bodies will need to go into a form of, if there is a stress, our bodies will need to go into an immune response. That's normal. We need to be able to respond. It's about when that immune response is prolonged and and we're not able to bring it back down to baseline, that we can lead into inflammatory disorders. So it's really important that we're getting a massive boost of antioxidants in the body. So I've mentioned berries, dark chocolate, green tea, omega-3s as well, really crucial to be trying to get as many omega-3s into the body. So there are different types of fats and there are different types of what we call essential fatty acids, and there are omega-3s and omega-6s. Omega-3s are absolutely fantastic for making sure that we're reducing that inflammation, but they have been specifically linked in studies to supporting a lot of benefits with aging. So supporting insulin resistance, supporting how our body manages cardiovascular issues, supporting brain health, which we'll go on to more.
He's 9 the flaxseed. He's 9 the flaxseed, right?
Yes, exactly. And I wanted to touch on a little few things that can actually help support your body's ability to increase its antioxidant absorption. So processed foods, a lot of us know, the more we eat processed foods, the reduction in antioxidants as they process them. But I think what's really important to know is, as we are cooking foods and as we are processing them ourselves, we are able to change our body's ability to absorb them. So if we're thinking about tomatoes, when we cook tomatoes, we can break down the matrix, the outer layer, and by doing that, we can release the antioxidant, for example, lycopene in tomatoes, and it's much easier for our body to absorb that lycopene. So there's little things that can be done. Additionally, cooking it in olive oil, if you're cooking it in those essential fatty acids, you can really increase the absorption of those antioxidants as well. So some little key tips. And if we're thinking about going back to breaking down that matrix of the fruit and vegetable, one of the things I love to do is, if you're buying, for example, berries from the shop, it's actually really good to get them when they are going, if they do like a 3 for 2, they're going off. That's when you want them, because their matrix is already getting broken down. Their polyphenol count has been shown to be higher. So yes, you're going to have to get quite a few, you're going to have to get them and then eat them quite quickly, but you've got to be mindful of, getting that much sugar in the diet. But, if you can give them out to other people as well, that's a fantastic way of getting them and getting that increased absorption of the polyphenols. And it's really important to get that rainbow variety, because the rainbow variety of different colours and vegetables, they work synergistically. So if we think about white vegetables, they're really important for immunity. If we think about red vegetables and fruits, they're fantastic for cardiovascular health. They all have their own benefits. We can't just be looking at having one vegetable and sticking into that one rut. We have to try and open up the variety, because we need them all working synergistically and bouncing off of each other. And I didn't mention here, but spices. Spices are fantastic. They are anti-inflammatory. They have got so many different benefits. And also, as we age, and at all stages of aging, our taste changes. I know that I hated tomato juice and now I love it, but our taste changes. And actually one of the reasons for this is our change is in zinc. Zinc is crucial for our ability to taste and how we perceive taste. And so adding spices to things, if things are starting to get a little bit kind of bland and, you're not liking what you're eating, add a few spices in, because they can really change everything massively. And I wanted to also just mention about learning new skills, because it's something that I think learning new skills is something that some people might want to do or not want to do, but actually it's so crucial for our brain's neuroplasticity and ability to increase and build new neural pathways. So even if it's something very, very small, trying to change, I always think to myself, rather than going the same walk home, how can I change the walk home today? How can I shift those little things to try and increase my brain's ability to kind of go off kilter a little bit? And hydration is something also that is often overlooked. And as we change and we age, our ability to absorb water and electrolytes can become slightly harder, and this is due to different reasons. But there are things that we can do. Sometimes if you're feeling that you're someone who gets dizzy maybe more than you used to, if you're finding that your skin is becoming a little bit drier, you can put electrolytes in your water. I personally add electrolytes or a little pinch of Himalayan salt to my water every day to really increase the body's ability to absorb the fluids. So these electrolytes, they are specific minerals, things like magnesium, that are crucial for muscle function and for our body's ability to basically move minerals as it should. And so if our body is not getting these electrolytes as well, it doesn't matter how much water you're getting in, you need the electrolytes in order to be pushing the water to where it needs to be. So there is a calculation of how much you're meant to be drinking, but again, who wants to sit there and calculate it? Not me. It's about looking at the clues. Look at your wee. What is the colour? Now, ideally, we don't want to be getting it to dark yellow before we start drinking. So it's about making sure that we've got that water with us, having those electrolytes already there so that we're increasing our hydration before we get to the point that it's a bit later. Because what a lot of people sometimes don't realise is thirst is the last thing that you will detect. So a lot of people say, well, I'm not thirsty. That's the last thing that you will feel when you're actually dehydrated. So it's about putting in things first before we even get to the point of feeling thirsty.
How do you add electrolytes to water?
You can get a sachet. You can get them from the supermarket. I personally use different companies. I use one called Elite. I use specific companies called like Elite or LMN, but you can get them from the supermarket. And they're just little sachets, and they tell you exactly how much to put into the water to make sure that you are diluting it properly. But even if you don't, I mean, the other day my dad was really struggling. He said he felt really dizzy, he couldn't get out to the shops. I just said to him, get some salt. He didn't even have Himalayan salt. I said, just put some salt in your water, because you need the salt in order to be able to absorb that fluid in. So sometimes you just have to adapt. You know, if you're really feeling like you can't get out and you're really, just put some salt in as well. And another thing, instead of salt, if you don't even have that, slices of fruit and vegetable. I always put lemon or cucumber in my water, because the natural electrolytes, the natural sodium that you get, the organic sodium that you get from the fruit and vegetables, is another way that your body can absorb the fluid. So I always used to think that they were just trying to make water taste nice in a restaurant, but actually it's got loads of benefits, and I always will try and make sure that I have some fruit or vegetable or salt in my water as well.
Does having ice in your water help?
No, and actually the thing with ice is that if you have too cold a water, it can actually make it harder to digest food. So the thing with water, obviously a lot of us like a cold drink, and it's not to say that you shouldn't have ice. There's never, for me, I'm not a purist. It's not to say you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. But if you are someone who can struggle with digestive symptoms, putting ice in your drink can actually make it harder for you to digest it. So ideally, you're meant to be having water at a room temperature in order to support the digestive juices and make sure that it's all kind of in sync and we're not changing the temperature too much from what's already happening inside, because we need to be supporting those enzymes that are working in there and keeping them to that temperature.
And sparkling or still, any?
Again, it always depends on someone's symptoms. So if someone's coming through to me and they're having a lot of heartburn, I will say to stay away from sparkling water. So there's never a you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. It's always about, and that's why I love naturopathy, it's about looking at someone who comes in front and going, what are you coming with? Because if you're drinking sparkling water and you're not having any heartburn and you're okay, go for it. You know, we are here to live an enjoyable life, and we should be having whatever we want. It's just about being mindful, okay, it might not be the best thing for me. I love sparkling water, but when I drink it, I get a bit of indigestion, to be honest, straight away. So for me, it's not great, but you might be absolutely fine with it. So it's about testing it, see how you go, and going with it. And important as well is how we drink and when we drink. So it's really important, if we're guzzling down cups and cups of water, our body doesn't have time to absorb it. So it's much better to be sipping the fluids. And it's also about looking at when we are drinking, because if we are drinking too much with our meals, it can dilute those digestive juices. It can dilute the stomach acid. It can dilute the digestive juices in the intestines as well. So what we normally say is you shouldn't ideally be drinking more than 200 mils of fluids with your meal. So I always think I just have a cup that's no larger than 200 mils with my meal. You can drink before that, you can drink after that, but it's just to be mindful that if you are having it with your meal, it can have a knock-on effect on your digestion and your ability to absorb nutrients. So I hope I hope everyone's got some nuggets from that. I hope that was interesting, but I am open to more questions if you have got any.
Is tomato juice bad for arthritis?
There has been studies to show that, but the studies that I saw were not large studies, and so I would say no. I mean, for me, I'm going very much on how large the studies are. That's what what we base everything on. And if the studies are smaller, I tend to not. You've got to take things with a pinch of salt. It's like things like oxalates. I don't know if anyone knows, like oxalates and phytates. There's some evidence to show that, and that's where tomato juice comes in. That's where some people believe that tomato juice may have an impact on arthritis. It's because of the phytates in it. But it's not large-scale studies. You mean you'll speak to some people who say, yes, absolutely, tomato juice can have an impact. I don't tell people that unless you're having gallons of it, I don't say to people, yes, you should definitely stop drinking tomato juice. So it's not a Puritan thing. It's about just looking at the amount that you're having. Like if someone comes through to me and is having a large amount of spinach, for example, or a large amount of rhubarb, which also have high phytates and oxalates, if they're having a large amount and I'm noticing that they're having joint pain, yes, I will tell them to reduce down the amount that they're having. I never tell anyone that they should be cutting it out unless someone has come through and they have got a clear intolerance to that food, and then we'll look to cut it down. But I don't automatically say, yes, you should definitely stop having tomato juice if you've got osteoarthritis.
And are polyphenols good for losing weight?
Sorry,
are polyphenols good for losing weight?
Yes, yes, absolutely. So I can't remember exactly the mechanism, but polyphenols have been shown to have benefits in lots of different things. And I know definitely in losing weight, I think it's to do with the polyphenols have a knock-on effect on our body's insulin resistance and on our body's ability to modulate homocysteine. And all of these can have a knock-on effect in supporting that. So absolutely. Polyphenols there's still a lot of evidence that's happening at the moment, a lot of studies, but there's a lot of evidence to show that really they can be supportive of quite a lot of things.
Right. Is that berries then, polyphenols?
Berries, dark chocolate, green tea, there's lots of, to be honest, you get polyphenols in most fruit and vegetables. They all have their own polyphenol. So things like I mentioned lycopene, beta carotene in orange foods. So there are numerous lutein, which you can get in certain foods as well, lutein that you can really help with eye health. So there's lots of different polyphenols in different fruit and veg. Basically, they are found in lots of different plant compounds. You can find them in lots of different varieties of foods.
There's such a range of supplements and vitamins you can get from such a range of companies. Have you got any recommendations for a basic cocktail and which company to use?
So I think we always have to be mindful that supplements should never be used long term. And when someone comes through, I'm very mindful about we are trying to help support a certain concern, and that will be the thing that we're working on, and no one should be taking supplements long term. However, the one thing I take, and this is the one thing that I will recommend, is a fruit and vegetable capsule, because it's not a supplement. I take something called Juice Plus. It's not a supplement. It's fruit and vegetables, 10 to 12 portions, freeze dried. They try to be as organic, if not more, And I have looked at, they've got like 49 peer-reviewed journals, and there's no fillers in it, there's no added nasties. I've looked at what the breakdown of the actual shell is made of. It's made of tapioca, because a lot of the time with nutrients, there's been evidence to show if you are just taking an isolated nutrient, for example, vitamin C, there's evidence to show if you're just taking that isolated nutrient, it can potentially, especially long term, actually have more impact, some negative impact on the body. So the only thing I recommend long term is a fruit and vegetable capsule that I know is not a supplement. It's supporting the body in lots of different ways, which is why I love it. It supports it, it's giving you fiber, antioxidants, vitamins and minerals all in one go. So it helps with inflammation, it helps with immunity. I mean, my skin cleared up. There's studies with cancer prevention. For me, it's the only thing that I will recommend to everyone, because I don't think that there should be anything that is a one thing for everyone, because it really depends on the symptoms you're coming through with. But that's the only thing that I would recommend as kind of a overall, this is what I would say.
Is there a particular company you would recommend?
Juice Plus.
Pardon?
Juice Plus. I'm happy to give you no problem. I'm happy to. It's the only thing that I'm personally happy to take long term. I see it as like my nutritional safety belt. It's the thing, I mean, the evidence has been so overwhelming in terms of the variety of things. I know people taking it, it's reduced their cholesterol levels, it's reduced their insulin resistance, their HbA1c, their insulin level, markers have come down. It's been an overall, for me, the fact that it has so many overall benefits, because it's literally feeding the gut fiber and antioxidants and nutrients that it needs that we're not getting from the soil, that it's the only thing I'm taking, and I'll happily give a recommendation.
So you wouldn't recommend them taking a multivitamin every day?
No. The multivitamins, I mean, I'm not to say multivitamins are not good, but a lot of people will take a multivitamin and it won't necessarily have, we don't necessarily see any positive impacts. And the fact that these isolated nutrients have been shown to potentially, and it's been shown in studies that they potentially can have a negative impact. For me, I want to keep it as natural as possible. I want to keep it as near to what is mimicking nature as possible. That's always what my goal is. And with a multivitamin, taking that long term, that's not mimicking nature. So that's how I look at it.
What do you say to premenopausal women, where I know that having studied it intensely, maca root, is it red, black and yellow, and then premenopausal supplementation, and shiitake mushroom, multi-mushroom, all of that. What do you say about that?
So I think with premenopausal symptoms, I think a lot of people are very quick to jump on how are we going to balance the hormones, but actually we have to start with the basics of nutrition and the liver. The liver is absolutely key in our body's ability to detoxify hormones. So when someone comes through with perimenopausal, I will straight away look at their digestion, look at how their body is detoxifying in the liver, the hormones, and also how it is detoxifying and eliminating, because we need to be detoxifying in the liver, but it doesn't matter if we're not getting them out of the body.
How do you do that?
So how do we get them out of the body?
How do you analyse? Do you assess a urine sample?
So I tend to do Dutch hormone profiling when people come through to me. There's different types of Dutch hormone tests, but depending on the symptoms, if it's someone who's perimenopausal, I tend to do a Dutch complete. So that's looking at urine and saliva and looking at the balance of hormones over this period of the month. But to be honest, I don't necessarily just jump to testing. I do start, to be honest, with digestion and liver first. But the Dutch hormone profiling is a really good way of looking at how the hormones are going over the period of the month. When you go to the doctor, a lot of the time they'll just do maybe, understandably, a hormone test at one point in the cycle. But the Dutch hormone is able to look over the space of the whole month.
I was almost going to go the other week, but they were running late and I had to go back to work, so I left it. But I'm going to rebook because I was interested. But so many women have told me it could be the wrong time of your cycle and it might not be dropped. So it could be
which is why it's good to look over the whole month. And the thing, going back to maca, there's different types of maca, so depending on what someone will come through to me with, I'll recommend different types of maca. So for example, if someone does a Dutch test and we see that their testosterone level is quite high, I will go in with a specific maca for that. If someone comes through and they are postmenopausal, there's different macas for that as well. And if we're talking about mushrooms, there are the evidence coming through on mushrooms at the moment is phenomenal. I mean, I'm using reishi quite a bit. If I'm talking about, you know, obviously as we age, our body's ability to, we talked about creating secretions in the stomach, but that secretions all around our body, our secretions in our joints, our secretions internally, it changes. And reishi has been really found to have such a beneficial impact on increasing, it's antifungal, it's antibacterial, but also increasing our body's ability to change how it can absorb fluids as well. And especially with hormone balance, you can use shiitake, but I prefer reishi as well.
What do you think about lion's mane?
Lion's mane is fantastic. I tend to use lion's mane more for if I'm trying to shift things in cognitive health. So if I've got someone coming through with neurodivergence, or if someone has got, they're really trying to support themselves mentally, that's when I'll start to look at lion's mane, because it's incredible. There's an amazing company called Hifas de Terra that I work with, who they have different mushrooms working with different probiotics for different benefits. So yeah, I love mushrooms, and love to eat them, but I also love them in supplements. I think they're fantastic, but there's a lot of more evidence that's coming out at the moment about the benefits of mushrooms. So it's always changing.
What's the best way to cook mushrooms?
What's the best way to cook mushrooms? I saw your hand as well. I'll come to it as well. But there's no specific way with mushrooms that I know about, not to say there isn't, but when we're thinking about cooking, I haven't touched on this, but how we cook food is really important. So if we're thinking about frying the mushrooms, we need to be thinking about what oil we're using to fry them. So we need to be trying to stay away from inflammatory oils, things like vegetable oils, which if they are not heated, they can be okay. But if they're heated to a high heat in the pan, they can become very inflammatory in the body. So if we are using oil and frying the mushrooms, we have to be trying to stick to oils that have got a high stability. Olive oil, which is also full of antioxidants, avocado oil I love cooking with, coconut oil, but also you can steam vegetables, which is also a fantastic way. For me, I'd always say not to boil any vegetable, because you completely lose the nutrients when you boil the vegetables. So it's about looking at how you're frying but also, oven bake. You can oven bake a lovely portobello mushroom. Air fryers that I used to be honest with you, at first I was not a fan, but actually there's some good evidence coming through now to say that actually air frying is okay, and you are still getting a good amount of nutrients from the air fryer as well. So there's lots of different ways, but it's just about looking at, only because I saw Claudette's hand as well.
Funnily enough, it was touching on what I was about to ask you about, which was olive oil. And because I tend not to cook, maybe unless it's very low temperature, I would tend not to cook with olive oil and use it more for salads and whatnot.
It's got a high amount, the thing is, it's got a high amount of saturated fat in olive oil, so you can cook with it. You might not want to go to the highest heat, but you can cook with olive oil, and especially because it's got the antioxidants in there as well, it's able to protect itself. It's got the stability from the saturated fat content, but you've also got the antioxidants in the olive oil, which is protecting that stability as well. So it is okay to cook with olive oil.
But it's just not too, because I would cook higher temperature with, say, avocado oil.
Exactly. I would say avocado, coconut, ideally, if you're going high heat, they're the two that I go with.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I read that women of a certain age with premenopausal should be on B complex supplements. Would you agree with that?
I think, again, that's a generalised view. B complex is definitely beneficial, 100%, but I wouldn't say it's definitely the thing for perimenopausal. It really depends. So for example, if someone comes through and does a Dutch hormone profile, I can specifically nail down exactly what it is that they need. As a general overview, B complex is beneficial, but I tend to recommend B complex more for supporting cognitive function, which can, this is why I say it depends on the symptoms. So if someone's coming through and they're really struggling with brain fog, yes, we will look at a B complex, but it's not necessarily the first thing I look at. I look at the liver and I look at the digestion. And so one of the first things I look at is milk thistle as a supplement, to be honest with you. Milk thistle is fantastic for giving that clearance to the liver, but it's also fantastic for digestion. And so you're kind of killing two birds with one stone in helping everything move those hormones through. So to be honest, that's the thing that I go with. It's not to say that B complex is wrong, it's just that's not the first thing that I go to unless someone comes through to me and they're really struggling with the brain fog.
Did you say milk thistle?
Yes.
Never heard of that.
We learn every day. I mean, look, before I qualified, we all learn every day. I hadn't heard of it either. And to be honest with you, for me, one of the milk thistle really supported my gut. It's actually known specifically for the liver, but it's got loads of benefits for the digestion as well. But again, I wouldn't go and just get milk thistle. It's about, and that's the thing with supplements. You should always speak to someone before you take a supplement, and nothing should be taken long term. You know, a lot of the time people are taking things for, I've known people take 20 years. That's not how supplements should be taken. It should be taken with a goal in aim, an aim that you're trying to support. No one should be taking supplements long term, but it's definitely something that can help in certain situations.
Coming back to the olive oil, how important do you think it is to get the real extra virgin cold pressed rather than the usual sort of supermarket olive oil? It's
best. It's better to go for that, but I think you've also got to be mindful about cost as well. I think you have to be realistic, and the evidence has shown that yes, ideally you should be getting extra virgin, because there is quite a big jump between the refinement between olive oil and extra virgin. But I don't say to everyone you should be getting extra virgin, because I think that that's unreasonable, and I think we have to be mindful. But yes, if we are talking about technically what we should be looking at, extra virgin, the shift is quite, there is quite a big impact.
Can I ask?
Sorry, I accumulated one or two questions. I'll just run with them while I remember them, otherwise I'll forget them. You were talking about the microbiome, and at one of the conferences I went to, they were doing genetic analysis, stool analysis, and then personalising your probiotics. So you got capsules specifically for you, having had your stool analysed. Do you think that's important or useful?
I do this. So one of the things, if someone comes through to me, often if they've got digestive symptoms, but even if you don't have digestive symptoms, your gut tells you so much. I mean, we saw that about the centenarian, who had a high amount of bifidobacterium. But when we're able to look at the specific breakdown of bacteria in the gut, and when you do a stool test, you're not just looking at the bacteria, you're looking at the fungi, the protozoa, you're looking at yeast, you're also looking at inflammatory markers, you're looking at things like zonulin and occludin. Is your gut able to keep that nice tight junction? There's so many things that you can tell from a stool test, and then tailor the probiotic based on that, absolutely. And I think, to be honest with you, obviously, not everyone can afford them, and that's why I don't ever say to everyone you should all be doing stool tests. But the amount of information that you get from a stool test is quite staggering, and when people come through to me, a stool test is generally one of the things that often gets recommended, because the information that you get from it, it can be very quick, the results, from being able to specifically recommend a certain probiotic based on what you've seen in a stool test. Absolutely, it's really, really helpful.
How do you get a stool test?
You can speak to me, or you can speak to another naturopathic nutritionist, but I do stool testing, not me personally, but I work with a company where the stool test is sent directly to the home. You do the stool test at home, and for some people, stool tests can be quite difficult to actually, they have specific criteria. But there's ways around that. So they ask for 3 consecutive days, but you do the test, you send it directly off to the company, I get the results. I'm then able to analyse those results with the person who I'm doing it with, and I can go through and then make a very tailored plan based on a stool test. And it really is, to be honest with you, when I qualified, it was the first thing I did, and it was game changer for me. And I've noticed even people who don't have digestive symptoms, sometimes they want to do a stool test, and it's still brought up. I mean, I had someone recently, said to me, I don't have any digestive symptoms, but I want to do a stool test. Did a stool test. She had 2 types of yeast in her gut. We are now tailoring the protocol and the nutrition protocol and the supplements specifically to that. I would never have, there was no signs that she had any yeast in, any candida in her, she had no fungal overgrowths, she had no thrush, there was nothing to show that. So the gut, really, the stool test can show a lot. Sorry, I forgot who was next.
Should everyone have colonic irrigation or not?
So before I qualified, I did colonic irrigation and I loved it, to be honest with you. And I remember a friend of mine who's a gastroenterology consultant, he went mental at me. He said, oh my God, I can't believe you've done that. It strips out the lining of your gut. So what I will say is, I'm not here saying that no one should do them, because I personally got a great benefit from it, but there are much more natural ways of supporting the elimination of the body. Right. So personally now I do things like castor oil packs. There are ways of supporting that elimination without going and putting a tube up you. I mean, look, you can do, I sometimes recommend coffee enemas.
Sorry?
A coffee enema. So there are ways, but with coffee, which sounds still, but it's still more, you're not stripping away as much as you would with a colonic. So I'm not telling anyone ever what to do, but colonics aren't meant to be great in terms of stripping away, because afterwards you're stripping away so much of the gut that yes, you feel completely cleaned out, but you then have to, where's your immunity gone? The gut is integral to immunity, to everything in the body. And if we're just stripping it all out, that leaves us with very bare bones. And so I always say there's much more natural ways of supporting that detox from the body.
Right, okay.
Not to say it's wrong though.
Okay. When you say castor packs, do you mean topically?
Yes, topically. So
it was recommended by Edgar Casey in America, and apparently it's a wonderful healing oil. Actually,
it's amazing.
But it's very messy. That's the only trouble.
Yes, it is messy. So I get always organic castor oil. It is messy, and you're meant to absorb it. The best way to do it is absorb it onto a pad. Take that pad and you can apply it. So we talked about supporting elimination. So if someone has got a bunged up digestive symptom, I'll put it around their stomach. However, I've had people come through with thyroid conditions, and I've had them apply a castor oil pack to their where their thyroid is as well. So you can apply. They are messy. But what I think one of the benefits is when you put it on the body, you put it on, you wrap yourself in some cling film, you try it, put some towels down. But it's also a moment of being mindful. You can't move. You're meant to lie there, you're meant to just let it absorb. Anything I feel that gives you that time to sit with yourself and just have some decompression time mentally is beneficial. So I always think the castor oil packs, yes, they're messy, but it's like a 2-for-1. You're getting a detox with your body and you're getting a detox with your mind as well.
And do you put a hot pad on it?
Yes. And so it does get quite intense. You're meant to put a hot water bottle to help absorb the castor oil. It can get quite intense. It's not for everybody, to be honest. You're meant to have it quite hot, the hot water bottle or the heat on the castor oil. But if that's not okay for you, you can just turn down, not put as hot water in the hot water bottle. I'm happy to always send out an explanation of clear guidelines of how to do a castor oil pack.
Can I just ask about cayenne pepper with the castor oil?
Oh, I don't know this.
Yes, I've heard about that.
But cayenne is
Very hot, obviously.
I'm sure.
Mix it with the castor oil.
I've not done this, but I like hearing anything new. I'm up for. To me, it's already hot enough. But cayenne pepper has also got fantastic anti-inflammatory benefits. Cayenne peppers, I love cayenne pepper, so I can imagine that the benefits of it. Yeah, absolutely. I've not tried it, and I think that will be my thing this weekend.
So would you just put it on from up?
You're meant to do it for 20 minutes. 20 minutes maximum. Any longer, it's too long. 20 minutes, and you're not meant to do more than 3 times a week. And I don't ever recommend them long term. It's only if we're trying to get, some kind of healing support. They're okay long term to do, but I tend to use it more of kind of a therapeutic sort of sense.
Can I ask, can you put it neat on your skin with an oil?
Yes.
So you don't need to have anything covering it. You just literally rub it in here or rub it in there.
Yeah, it's just very messy.
Yeah.
That's why you do it in a pack. You do it on a pack and you just let it absorb. You do it in a pack because it helps with the absorption, and then you put the heat on top of it. But you can just apply it.
So I could apply it and then put a hot water bottle on top?
Absolutely. Okay. I know some people who just apply it, and I know some people that use it as massage oil, castor oil. It's absolutely fine to apply.
Also, you can put it on your face.
Exactly.
I've got quite a brown mark on the side of my face, which has actually near enough gone. Because the nights I just pat the castor oil on. It's really sticky, but by the morning it's gone. So
I use aloe vera, and I literally do some nice, facial kind of stretching and toning, and I use aloe vera, but I know someone else that uses castor oil, so I've been thinking of shifting and seeing. But absolutely, you can use it. It's got so many benefits.
You didn't mention, no, I don't think you did, but the importance of organic foods. Would you feel that I feel it's chalk and cheese, but I know there's a cost implication.
With organic, there's a cost implication, but obviously it is preferred if you are organic. But I think it's about being mindful of the foods that you're doing organic. So there's something called the Dirty Dozen. These are 12 foods that are known to have a cumulatively increased amount of chemicals and pesticides added to them. They are the foods that I tend to recommend that people get organic. Things like spinach, strawberries, they're the top 2 that I always, there's a list of 12, but
kale.
Yes, kale, exactly. And I think, it's like what I say, can't just say to everyone, you should all be organic. But I think about looking at those Dirty Dozen, trying to stick to them. The other thing I do is with foods that maybe I think they're too expensive for me to get organic, I will soak them in apple cider vinegar for 20 minutes. And that can really help to remove pesticides, because when you just wash them underwater, it doesn't actually do much. So it's been shown that if you soak them 20 minutes, just leave them there, give them a good scrub, that can really help to remove the pesticides as well. And obviously, you know what it's like, even with organic, pesticides can still, be sprayed all around, but at least then that you're doing as much as you can.
We used to have the Village Whole Food down at 40 Hill with Jill Simpson's shop, which is unfortunately closed. But don't forget the shop up at 40 Hall, the farm shop.
It's open longer now.
Okay.
It's open longer.
I love that shop.
Now than it used
Great.
to be. I think it's open 10 till 4.
Yeah.
I love that shop.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to ask, we had a long time ago a herbal medicine practitioner, Carol Simons, and she became very keen on the naturopathic blood type diet, and she found that comparing with her colleagues who qualified from Middlesex University at the same time, by adding the blood type diet, which she became very enthusiastic about, none of the others were, she found she consistently could get much better results, and they refer people to her who they couldn't sort out with herbal medicine, and she could because of the diet.
Yeah, and
do you have any comments about the blood type diet?
So and it's interesting because from everyone I qualified with, so I don't know if just for a lot of people here might know this already, but there's evidence to show that if you can tailor your nutrition to your blood type, there are specific blood groups, and has been found to be specific nutritional patterns that are better for different blood groups. So some people do better, for example, on a higher protein, lower fat, and it's been found to be beneficial. Out of the people I qualified with, only one is using blood grouping as part of their practice. She swears by it. I personally haven't used it yet, and that's not to say I'm not doing it because it's wrong. It's just it's often an added blood test that people don't want to do, or they don't feel that has, you know, we're already looking at other things, but it is something that I'm very mindful, and I'm going to be actually looking to start doing soon, because I'm going to do it on myself. I'm going to start with myself, see what happens, because I try everything on myself first before I recommend it. And so I will get back to you, because it's not many practitioners that are using it, and there was some evidence to show it was getting discredited. That's why a lot of people weren't using it. It was based on, I think the problem was it got discredited, and then some naturopathic schools aren't even teaching it anymore. But I'm going to be honest with you, look to do my blood group.
It does make a lot of sense, doesn't it? Because
of course.
You've been emphasising the personalisation of what you know, it's not like one diet fits all type of attitude. It's very anti-inflammatory, and I used to have a few copies of Eat Right for Your Type and give them to my patients who hadn't responded for inflammatory conditions, particularly, so whether it's arthritis or colitis, anything that was very inflammatory. And I was highly impressed. If you follow that for a month and come back and see me, if they stuck to it, eating right for their type. I mean, for example, I know, and I've avoided wheat and dairy ever since, because I believe in it.
Yeah. There you go, you're the first, but it's something that I think because it was discredited, it's put a lot of people off using it, but I'm definitely keen to use it. I mean, the person I know has seen massive impacts as well with her clients.
I think it was only discredited because no one could show real
clear evidence,
scientific proof.
Exactly,
but
which
Peter Adano's father, who was a naturopath, it was clinical observation.
Which it often is.
Yeah.
And I think just because there isn't hard evidence, that doesn't mean we should discredit it. Absolutely. And I think that's why I've said I'm going to do it, because it makes complete sense that we're talking about, like you said, we're talking about how we can tailor nutrition. It makes sense. And you know, I mentioned about the constitution that you see in the eyes. There are certain miasms, certain predispositions that people have. It makes complete sense that our blood type, you know, we're already categorized into these very minute amount of blood groups. It makes sense that there is something linked to that. So I will come back to you on that, because I'm going to do it myself, to be honest. It's been my thing for this year.
Have you read the book?
Yes, I've read the book, but then didn't end up it's the same as when I trained, we learned parts of Ayurveda as well. So, you know, medicine from the Eastern world, and it's very hard to include Ayurveda with naturopathy. It ends up becoming a little bit difficult to because you don't want people one of the things I think is that we should all be getting our blood group tested, not just when we have surgeries, because no one has their blood group tested unless you go for a surgery. So a lot of people come through.
Blood donor. Be a blood donor.
I'm not allowed.
Yeah.
But yes, be a blood. Absolutely.
No.
Yes, those are eligible. Exactly.
Richelle, we usually stop about 9 o'clock to have tea and cake.
I was going to say, absolutely. It's like, I was like, yes. Do you want to stop, and then people are welcome to come and just chat to me? Or there's also going to be.
We can come back after the tea.
I was going to say after the tea, I was going to do a zinc taste test, but I'm also happy if you want to do questions. I'm very flexible, whatever you'd prefer. Yes, absolutely. So we'll stop for tea.
So what?
All people have questions, so I don't know if you want to we can discuss what were people's results to that, and what did they think about it? Did they get anything that they were shocked about, or?
Interesting, very interesting. Isn't it? Very interesting. We learn new things. Thank you.
It's a good indication. It's not to say yes, definitely you've got, you know, zinc deficiency or anything like that, but it's a good marker. And from that, I will also be looking at the nails. I'll be looking for zinc spots. I'll be doing a further kind of assessment. So depending on if they've not had any blood tests, I will probably recommend a zinc, to look further into it. Or I will sometimes do a hair mineral test to look back at the kind of cumulative impact. If they've been taking zinc and they're struggling to absorb it, I'll have a look back at the last few months to see, because the hair will give you a kind of longer picture. So it's a good indicator. It's not to say that you can base everything off of it, but I think it's a good thing just to show that there are simple little tests that we can do to kind of give us a lot of information about what's happening.
So, where are you based?
I am based in Epping at the moment.
Right, sorry. Yeah, I thought you said Essex.
I was going to say, you can hear my Essex accent. It comes through sometimes. It's Essex Cockney, but yeah, I'm based in Essex at the moment, but we'll see. I'm currently in the process of buying. It's lovely. Got the forest, trees. I'm happy there.
So with the taste, you're saying the more deficiency, the stronger the taste. Was that
the opposite?
the
So
opposite?
if you are tasting nothing,
Yeah.
it's indicating that you need more zinc.
Right.
If you've got slightly furry sort of sensation, it's showing that you're not deficient, but you may need some support in the zinc. So that might not be that you just need to take zinc. It might be that you might need support with your stomach acid and how your body's absorbing it. How it should taste is quite bitter.
Right.
It should be quite strong.
What about
And that shows your zinc is.
Is a good level.
What about sweet and sour? Like I feel like sweet and sour.
Oh, that's a new one. I like that. We'll have to add that onto the to the list.
What's like sweet and sour? Yeah.
Oh, it's definitely meant to be like a quite a weird taste. I personally, when I've done it, it's like water. I knew I needed to work on, so I take stomach acid, or I was taking stomach acid for a short period of time, and I then did the zinc taste afterwards, and I noticed quite a dramatic difference in the taste of the zinc.
You know, I had cinnamon tea and it was quite sweet, the cinnamon. And maybe because of the cinnamon, the mixture of it?
Maybe. And also all our taste is different. And also where we take food onto our tongue is different. You know, the front of the tongue is different to the taste buds to the back of the tongue. And so it could also be, you mentioned that you didn't at first put it on.
Yeah, and then
It could have been that as well.
So you mentioned about zinc being very important for the immune system and healing as well with wounds, isn't it?
Absolutely.
You mentioned the nails and nail spots. What should people be looking at their nails? Is it white spots? Is there or lines?
There's numerous things I look for. So I don't know if someone wants to show me their nails, and I'm happy to. So I'm looking for zinc spots, but they can also be an indication of calcium buildup, like I mentioned before. I'm looking for ridges, but I'm not just looking at how many, I'm looking at the direction. So if they are vertical, you've got one there. So, you know, when I first started working on my digestion, I had ridges all across my nails, and the vertical ridges can indicate that your body is not digesting nutrients as well as it should. And we were just saying earlier, when you start to really have an impact and work on your digestion, you can see these ridges really reduce quite quickly. I'm also looking at the moons. So everyone should have quite a nice moon at the base of their nail. I don't, and I noticed that mine, I mean, I'll regularly do a check and it gives me an idea of what's going on. So the moons gives us an idea as to the shape of it, gives an idea as to how your body is, how its circulation is. So if someone has not got any moons, it gives me an idea that maybe they need to be supporting their circulation. Maybe we need to increase the exercise, maybe we need to increase foods that support circulation like beetroot, but also the colour of the nail. You know, medically we know this, it gives a lot of information as to someone's capillary refill, so how is their circulation, but also the colour of the actual moon itself. If someone has got a very, very dark purple moon, it will give me an idea that there might be something going on cardiovascularly in their body as well. And also the shape of the nail. So you get different types of nail. You get the oblong nail, you get a more oval nail. They tend to be linked to specific characteristics as well. So people who have got more of a square shaped nail are known to be quite more stubborn people who are a bit more rigid than, and this is not, you know, this is not proven, but this is based on Chinese medicine, you know, based anecdotally.
Curved one, like the eagles, they go round.
Oh.
Like,
Like hooktail. Yeah. I don't know, but you definitely there's so many different types that you can get of. Honestly, I've got a book on like 50 pages on different.
Isn't that iron deficiency?
Iron deficiency. I was going to say iron deficiency, but also, you know, I'm looking at the strength. I'm looking at if someone's got weaker nails. I'm looking at like vitamin A and protein. So there's so many different things that you can get. I'm also looking at, you know, if the kind of the top of the nail, because I can then give an indication if is someone biting their nails, is someone stressed. So there's so much that you can get from the nails.
Coming back to the zinc, and you talk about zinc spots. Has anyone got any spots?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, bless, he's like, no.
Look at this hand. He's got a white spot on there and he hasn't got the moon.
I think, do you know, this is a thing.
Point at 18, I was a kid.
What is this for?
So it's I would say that you need to be, you know, potentially looking at your body's ability. It's not just about the intake. This is the thing. It's about how your body's absorbing the zinc as well. But we can't just go on, you know, we can't just go on one particular finger and go by that. We have to look at the whole picture altogether. It would give me an idea as to what else I need to be looking at. So, are there things in your history that, you know, you've been struggling with immunity? Are there struggles with your body's ability to recover from wounds?
Stomach ulcers as well?
Stomach ulcers, absolutely, absolutely. So it's about looking at all these kind of clues together, not just going on one thing and picking up from that.
Do liver spots indicate anything?
The liver might need some support, to be honest with you. Liver spots, liver spikes, the liver might need a little bit of, the liver is so crucial. I think a lot of people think that the liver, you know, if I'm not drinking alcohol, if I'm not having caffeine, but the liver has so many jobs. It's where our macronutrients are broken down. It's where I mentioned before about kind of toxins, and it's where glycogen is broken. It's so crucial that the liver is constantly in overdrive. And also, you know, we've talked about organic food, but a lot of our world is full of toxins. Our liver is constantly having to work, and so a lot of the time the liver needs more support than we think. The cholesterol is the liver is where cholesterol is absolutely filtered through. So if someone comes through and their cholesterol levels are off, I know that we need to be looking at the liver as the grounding for it. Has anyone got anything else?
Are there neurotransmitters in the guts?
Yes, absolutely.
There are. That's
Yeah.
what they call it, the second brain.
Absolutely. So, you know, when people are struggling with mood, I automatically say we have to start with the gut.
Yeah.
Because if the gut is not working properly, the gut-brain axis, you know, the gut has so many different axes. The gut-brain axis, the gut-skin axis, and the neurotransmitter. It's a two-way. It's a bidirectional axis, bidirectional path, and so we need to be working on. I think they're still debating it. I think they were saying something like, I think it was 70% of neurotransmitters were actually made in the gut, or I'm not exactly. Oh, they're still debating it. I'm not exactly sure. Don't quote me on that. Don't quote me, because I'm sure it might. I don't know exactly if it's that.
70% of your immune system
Is based in the gut, but the neurotransmitters as well, I think they're still debating how much of it actually comes from the gut. But, you know, the serotonin, the GABA and glutamate, a lot of it comes from the gut as well. But it's got different sort of mechanisms of how it works. But absolutely, they're made in the gut as well. Right. So if I have someone come through to me and they are struggling, let's say they've got neurodivergence and they're struggling to struggle with their emotions, and they're struggling with or with low mood, I always start with the gut as a kind of starting point. Absolutely.
And there's a massive mind-body connection they're just discovering now, aren't they? You know, if you're happy, then it just affects the whole body.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
On that front, a good few years ago, there was a conference attended by the Dalai Lama, amongst other people, on ageing. I think it was over in Canada, I believe, and they were presenting evidence there of meditation having the same effect on the telomeres. So when you're doing your castor oil patch for 20 minutes, then do your meditation at the same time, and you're getting a double benefit then.
For me, it's known meditation has so many benefits, and when I started meditating, it changed my life. And I do actually put a lot of my health changes. Yes, okay, I had a a minor surgery that helped my back, but I put a lot of it down to my mind and how I was able to shift my body's perception of the pain and shift my body's perception of the digestive issues. Meditation it's got so many benefits. So yeah, to be honest with you, I want to start on the meditation course that you mentioned.
If you're already meditating,
well, you can always learn. And there's so many different ways to meditate. I actually love dance meditation. A few years ago, I went to a Sufi festival and I danced and I whirled for 5 hours straight. And there's so many different ways of meditating. It's not just about just sitting there and being, this is not. It's not just about sitting there. There's so many ways that you can still your mind. That's what I love about meditation and changing how we look at it.
The meditation we teach is derived from TM, so it's a mantra meditation basically.
Yes, which I love.
Very simple. Very cool.
You can do it anywhere. I love it.
You said dance meditation.
Yeah, anything that you can do to still your mind, and when you actually dance consistently in a circle, you can actually dance yourself into like a trance-like state. It's from Sufism, so the kind of spiritual branch of Islam, and they have festivals around the world, and that was that was a bit of a, I mean, there are always parts of your life that have a big impact, but that was really interesting for me and a big impact because it was like, I don't have to just, I struggle sometimes, I've got ADHD, I struggle to just sit and meditate even though I love it. It's hard for me sometimes to do it. So sometimes I will play guitar and I will go into a meditative state if I just do one chord over and over and over again, and I can zone out. Exact drumming, absolutely. So there's lots of ways of doing it, but I love mantra meditation.
Could someone with dementia, particularly at the early stages, practice meditation?
This is the meditation expert. Don't ask me, ask. But meditation's for everyone.
Yes, I think is the answer.
It's for everyone, because there's so many ways of doing meditation, and it's not as, I think people make it out like it's really, really difficult, and you don't have to do it for that long. The brain is a muscle. You build it up over time. I used to really struggle to sit for 20 minutes, and it takes time, but exactly. It can be for anyone.
There's quite a few different sorts, and I'd recommend, if you want to try out different sorts, the Mind, Body, Soul exhibition is at Ali Pali. I think it's October.
I'm going. I love it.
Yeah, and it's combined with the yoga show. So, you can go there and sort of suss out what appeals to you, because yoga might be the thing, to de-stress.
And then, now or soon?
Well, there's the Olympia one, which is Mind, Body, Spirit.
Right.
And the one at Ali Pali is Mind, Body, Soul.
Okay.
Yeah. But similar, not the same exhibitors.
When's maybe in Olympia?
I don't know the Olympia dates.
It's this month.
June. Oh.
I think it's just happened.
I think it was one of May half term.
Yeah. Yeah, because I know someone that went to it. I think it was last week.
What was it? Sorry, I think it's been your right.
The Ali Pali is just down the road, so October, and you can go and have free meditation sessions with different meditation teachers there.
Fantastic.
There's so much. I mean, I know we're talking about nutrition, but it's all interlinked, and mindfulness and meditation has just got so many benefits with immunity, with mental resilience. I can't stop talking about. This isn't even why I'm here, but I love meditation. Been a game changer for me. Linda.
Just one thing.
Yes.
Fasting. So do you believe in that at all?
Fasting has lots of evidence supporting its ability to support lots of things. Fasting actually, like the science started because of its benefits with epilepsy. If you're talking about kind of the going into the ketogenic state, but intermittent fast, there's different types of fasting, and fasting is not for everyone. This is the first thing I would say. It's not that fasting is good or fasting is bad. It's that fasting, you have to be mindful about how you're doing it. I will never recommend fasting to someone who is chronically ill. I'll never recommend it to someone who's pregnant. I'll never recommend it to someone who is struggling with they're overburdened, they've got chronic fatigue. No one like that should be fasting. Because fasting, depending on how you're doing it, but you're shifting your body into a different state of what it is burning for fuel. And also some people don't do well on it. Just some people don't do well on fasting. So it's not for everybody. I think there are ways of using fasting in a more gentle way. So if we look at like time restrictive eating, the best way to start with fasting is ideally, you want to be trying to get 12 hours overnight of not eating. That's the kind of best way to start with it, and that's not actually easy to a lot of people. So even starting with 11 hours, or starting with 9 hours, and gradually building up to that. And ideally, you want to be having what we call early time restricted feeding. So you want to be having your breakfast, you want to be eating earlier. You want to be having your breakfast earlier, and you want to be having your dinner, ideally, before 6 o'clock at night, because you need time for your body to be digesting food properly. Absolutely. So I love fasting. There's lots of evidence for it, but there's a time and a place for fasting.
It's amazing how these things come round, because I remember my grandfather's, who was a doctor, one of his sayings that was passed down was, breakfast like a king, lunch like a prince, and dine like a pauper. Same sort of thing.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, there's a lot of truth in it.
A lot of the things, they go round and round. It's like we were saying about blood group. I bet next week there'll be a load of evidence supporting it. It's just things, it's like fads, isn't it? But exactly.
How would you find out blood group? Do you just go to the GP?
Or go give blood. Go give blood.
If you can get blood.
You can get it tested. You can get it.
Usually the laboratories will not do just a straight blood test or blood group.
I was going to say it's combined generally with something else. I know someone who had it combined, but it was combined with a few other bloods. I didn't test it, but I know someone else that did.
And certainly locally, when I was practicing, and I've been retired for a while, they would turn down a blood grouping unless it was for a pre-op.
That's what I was saying before.
Pregnancy.
I mean, I had an op last year and they still wouldn't do my blood group. I was begging. I was like, please do my blood group. They wouldn't do it. And I can't give blood. I've been rejected. And it's really difficult to get your blood group. And this is also one of the reasons why I don't have people coming through as clients, because it's so hard. But I know someone that did get it done privately, but it was included in a whole package of blood. It was very expensive.
It's a bit weird, really, because I just feel it should be on your records.
Yeah.
Say you're in an accident or something.
I agree.
Pregnancy, obviously, is the
Pregnancy, people
who've had it done in pregnancy must have done find it difficult to get the results from their records, because
yeah.
it's got sort of
I've got factor 11 deficiency, and I still can't get my blood group tested, which I find crazy because I'm part of a I'm part of the hemo centre, and I still can't get it. It's really difficult.
What I would say though, the blood type diet product includes a blood testing kit for blood grouping, and it's quite cheap.
Okay, that's interesting to know. So yes, if anyone wants to know, I'm going to be doing this, to be honest, in the next few weeks. So watch your space. I'll have more info on it, because it is definitely something I want to do more of.
Did you want to say anything about where you work and etc.? And you've got your Instagram.
Absolutely. So I was going to say you can get me on Instagram, or you can get my phone number. I'm very much I like to chat. I'm not a techie person. I like people just texting me. I'm very open to that. I have a website as well. It's exactly the same. It's the Natural Health Advisory.
Number on that? Is your contact?
My contact number is on my website, absolutely, and so is my email address as well. I currently work. I work in a few different kind of modalities. I do 2 days a week for a fertility clinic. I do consultations for them. I do a day a week for an American company doing consultations for them. And then the rest of the time I have my own clients doing nutritional therapy and naturopathy. And I also run workshops and events as well. And I volunteer as a health coach for the NHS. So I'm to be honest with you, this is why I meditate as well, because I'm trying to slow down, but I love what I do. I'm very passionate about it, and so every opportunity I can to help, I love it. But yeah, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm very happy for questions. I do one-on-one consultations. I also just, if people just want to reach out to me and ask questions, I'm very happy for that as well.
Do you ever do any presentations at medical schools?
No. No.
You should.
Oh, we were talking about this earlier, but I think it's not. I mean, when I first qualified as a naturopathic nutritional therapist, I went to the Royal College of Nursing, and I mean, I was like, do you know what? It's just me, but I'm going to try. And I just said, is there any way that we could look to expand our look on complementary medicine? In Australia, they have holistic nurses, they have homeopathic nurses, all working as part of their health system, but they didn't want to look yet. But that's not to say I'm optimistic. At the moment, there is a real shift. I know pharmacists who are being allowed to prescribe more kind of complementary medicine. There's definitely a shift. So let's see, but not at the moment. Not at the moment. And also, I've got a lot more to learn. There's so much to learn, and yeah, I feel like there's a lot more to learn before I would get
With regards to medical colleges, obviously it would be the other way around. Rather than knocking on their door, they've got to say, well, we want to expand that particular area.
Exactly.
For our undergraduates,
yes.
And then finding people who they bring in.
Which is what I knew that going to the RCN, but I thought, do you know what? I'll just try it. Even though in my head I was like, that's not how this is going to work. But I thought, do you know what? We'll start somewhere. And I think you know, there's definitely a movement towards people kind of, when I first qualified, I was getting a lot of people laughing at me, joking, oh, you're such an idiot, thinking that nutrition's going to help. I still get it, but I still get it, but I don't care. And I think when people start to see the results of what they can, and I think a lot of it is about taking power and ownership over yourself and not just giving that over. When I just, you know, going back, when I first was told I needed spinal surgery, I went to a consultant at the NHS. I was told I had no option but to have 2 of my spinal discs removed, changed into metal, and I was told that the prognosis was very poor, I would potentially not walk again, and I might still have pain at the end of it. And I said, there must be another solution, and I was told there's no other option, which I found that can't be right. And I went and did my own research. I went to other consultants, and luckily I found laser discectomy, which is much better prognosis. But I spoke to a lot of people who told me that they would have just listened to that one doctor's advice, which is, I'm not having a go at anyone who does that, because obviously we trust who we're speaking to, but it's just that I love the benefit that we can get from nutrition and lifestyle and what we can do for ourselves. So that's what I'm passionate about.
Are you a nurse as well?
Yeah. So I still work as a nurse. People think I'm going to shift over, but I actually love teaching people about the benefits of naturopathy nutrition. I actually love straddling both sides because it's opening people's eyes to what is possible, rather than me just going, oh, I'm just going to leave that and move over. I'm actually really loving. It just means I'm very busy. That's the only problem. So I'm balancing it. But so I hope that was. Hope. Thank you for having me. Thank you.